Hey everybody, it's Alex Meller at Capnian here. There are two non-standard theses I'm going to develop in this video. The first is that for many of you listening out there, getting artificial intelligence right will really be about people. And second, if you want to understand the future, I think it's actually good to slow down and think about the past. The past is really what you have to work with to understand how things change over time. To develop these theses, I'm going to give a little vignette about firearms and their introduction to warfare vaguely in the time of the European Renaissance, although everything I'm going to say is at least also true of Japan and maybe the Middle East. It's not really important where in the world. People got these new gizmos, firearms. They were obviously pretty sexy and had a lot of potential as a weapon of war, but they had their limitations and weren't really what people wanted exactly. Does this sound familiar? It was actually a very long journey that was spread out over decades or maybe centuries, depending on how you want to reckon. What do we do with this new thing with so much potential, but a lot of weirdness and limitations around it? And we've probably all seen in movies or similar. Back in the day, warfare was very different. Vaguely, everybody lined up in a line real close together. There was probably a drum and a flute and somebody waving a flag. It's certainly not like that anymore. And so I introduced this to point out that there's a whole lot going on about how you organize people that intersects a lot with technology, but is not only technology. And what kind of value you get out of technology is often heavily determined by if you had a sensible plan for the people or not. So way back in the day, there are these new things, firearms, and there were a lot of these questions that people immediately had. Do we give everybody one of these? Do we give one guy a gun and a second guy a shield and a third guy a spear and they watch each other's backs? Do these people with these new weapons, should they be in a square? Should they be in a big line? Should everybody spread out and hide behind their own bush? And these were open questions that people in certain circles talked about for a really long time. And there were a lot of waves of different innovations. And of course, maybe you can say it ended with everybody had a gun in a line by the time of the American Revolutionary War. And then modern times, we've eventually gotten to everybody should crawl in their own hole or hide behind their own bush. But it was a really long journey of trial and error, different kinds of formations and modes of training and recruiting people. There's a whole different history about if you're riding on a horse, can you use a gun somehow? What kind of gun should it be? When should you shoot the gun? Do you need spare guns? And this also evolved over hundreds of years. It's of course true that part of the story is that the firearms got better as well, but that was always interpenetrated with these questions about organizing people. And if you read the history of this area of innovation, a lot of the people that got the most value out of the new technology were people that were astute innovators of how to organize people. And that's really my thesis for what you should be thinking about if you're a business leader and you're anything but a very technically focused organization. Somebody out there is making the widget better, and you win by being intelligent about how you organize people to exploit the new widget.